Hey guys, welcome back to Set Streets News. I'm Chris Bauer. I am here in Marceline, Missouri. And if you haven't gathered or have heard of this is Walt Disney's boyhood hometown. Now, it was only his boyhood hometown for about 5 years, but they were some of the most pivotal years of his childhood. And I'm going to take you around to some of the spots that they celebrate and stuff that he's talked about later in his life of it being so pivotal. And I hope you guys will join me on this trip down memory lane. Let's travel.
I'm Chris Bauer, and I am an art slinger. I travel around the U.S. selling artwork at comic and anime conventions, and while I'm there, I like to check out cool sights, eat great food, and see all the places my favorite movies and TV shows are made. Welcome to Sets, Streets, and Eats.
So this is Walt Disney's childhood home. They moved here to Marceline in 1905. They were here till 1910. So only 5 years. The Disney family did move around a lot. They moved from Chicago down to here and then moved on from here to Kansas City. This 5-year period was really important to Walt. Walt came of age here. He was, I believe, 4 or 5 when they got here. And then he moved when he was 10. But his childhood years were spent here, the ones that he really likes to talk about and where his boyhood fantasies really came to blossom because he was able to run and play. He was finally not in a city. They didn't have a bad neighborhood like they had in Chicago where the crime was high. So they were able to really be kids here and explore and be on the property. Later on in the years, after, of course, Walt was famous, he used to come back here. Him and Roy would come back here and visit, and they befriended one of their visits back. They befriended the Johnson family, the Johnsons, Rush and Inez Johnson. They became good friends of the Disneys, and Disneys would stay here when they came to visit Marceline. So, interesting fact about the house here. So, once the Johnsons bought the house, they kept this property, the original homestead, and the Johnson's daughter, Kate, actually worked at Disneyland. Walt got her a job at Disneyland. She worked there for many years and then moved back here, and then she raised her family in this home as well. So it's stayed in the family with a connection to the Disney family for really its entire life, at least for the last 100 years. So that's pretty neat. So this is the site of the original Dreaming Tree. And what the Dreaming Tree was, is Walt's talked about this throughout his life. There was a huge tree, which him and Roy are pictured right here when they came back for one of their visits to Marceline. And this was a big tree that Walt and Ruth would come out, Roy would come out. They would play around this tree. They would sit under this tree. They would draw into this tree. They would write stories. Stories Ruth would later talk about where they would keep all their stories in a little wad of papers, and they would put them in their bedposts of their old brass bed right up there at the homestead. She had fond memories of those. But this is where the original tree was. You can kind of see the sunken in part right here where it used to be. It was a large tree. Storms took it down over the years. I forget how many years ago, but they preserved the spot for it as the large old tree withered away. So, but this was the site of that where they would have a lot of childhood fun, and a lot of Walt's creativity really started to blossom. This was also during the time that Walt got cast as Peter Pan in his elementary school's production, and that was kind of his first taste of show business, so to speak. But all that happened, in that short time frame here. And it marked him for life. Like, he always remembered those years here in Marceline is some of his most creative and endearing things to have ever happened in his life. So behind me is a replica of a replica, and I'll explain it. So in the Disney film, 1949 Disney film, so dear to my heart, Walt, the film was set in the early 1900s, small town America. So Walt instructed his production designers to design a barn based off of his recollections of his family's barn here in Marceline. He loved that, so he actually had that barn recreated and built in his backyard. It is estate in Holmby Hills in California, and that was where he had his train track set up. But it's also in that barn replica is where Disney Imagineering basically was born, because that's where they started working on all kinds of different things for the parks, and it just kind of grew from there. So, Disney historians do regard that barn in his backyard, which was a replica of his family's barn, as the birthplace of Disney Imagineering, which has gone on to invent things that are just unthinkable, which is pretty cool if you can think it comes from humble beginnings, as you can see. Anyway, this barn was built back in 2001 as a replica of the barn that was in Walt's backyard, where Disney Imagineering started. D23, the Disney fan club, has had events here over the years in Marceline. They were very much behind preserving this history and keeping it going, and they've donated several benches and things that are inside. And at their conventions or their gatherings, you can autograph certain things that they've donated, like the benches inside, and you can also actually go into the barn and autograph that you were here anywhere in the barn, which is pretty neat. But this property, the Disney family property, and the barn and the Dreaming Tree are open year-round, 365 days a year. They never close. And it's just a place to come and reflect and see, and maybe even gather inspiration from, a place that gave so much inspiration to a dreamer like Walt Disney. Tens of thousands of signatures in here. Everything is signed in here. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you just bring your own marker. There's actually a couple laying over there. I don't know if they're any good, but you can come in here and sign any of the walls. I see Adam the Woo's been here. Definitely one of my favorite vloggers. Woof. This thing has seen better days. So one of the reasons this place is so important, especially to Walt, before he died, after in 1955 when he started Disneyland, it was a smashing success. And he wanted to do other parks, obviously, around the nation. But one of the things he wanted to do was to make a living history town or attraction here in Marceline. And it wasn't just an idea he told people. He actually made headway to do it. Like, so the Johnsons that the Disneys had befriended, that they would come and stay with during their visits, he had them buy up land, like 200 acres and an option to buy 500 more. He bought this homestead, this property, and the 200 acres surrounding it. In the idea, the preparation for, they wanted to build like a living history town, a lot like Greenwich Village in Detroit that Henry Ford did. So he wanted to have that here in Marceline, where it depicted the town that he remembered growing up. And The only thing, the reason that didn't happen was because Walt got sick and died. They were making plans for it. They had the land purchased, and they were going to purchase more if needed, which they probably would have because it would have grown. But of course, there in the late 60s, Walt passed away. Roy they were already started on plans for Walt Disney World in Florida, so those kind of took precedent, and by the early 70s, with Disney World about to open, Roy had moved on from the plan to do something to Marceline, and the rest is history. He had the Johnsons sell off the land. The Johnsons sold the land, but they bought themselves the actual house and the barn property right behind it. So they've kept it alive that way ever since. But it would have been interesting to see. I think a living history town with Walt's guiding hand would have been something to behold. It would have been a time machine back to that early time of Americana. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that happen. Another one of the things D23 donated was this rafter. Official fan club, they've got their plaque on it, signed by a lot of D23 members. These benches, those I believe were D23 donations as well. It's very cool. Very, very cool. Anyway, all these little trees, they all have little signs on them. Some of the signs have blown down, but even these ones right here, they've all been planted by different people that were involved with Disney in some capacity, which is, I just think is really neat. It's a way to just keep it going, keep that interest alive, keep the history alive. I think history is so important. There's so many good things that have come from, so many good memories and works and good things that have come from that family and Walt, and just their dreams of a better tomorrow, and by learning from our history and by taking care of our history. I don't know, I've always gotten that stuff from Disney. I think Disney is a really cool piece of American history. I really do. I love going to Disney parks. I love Disney movies. Like most people. I mean, I'm not different. Most people probably feel that way about Disney stuff. So it's just a really cool place out in the middle of Missouri to stop at and enjoy some of that history. Once the big dreaming tree had fallen, they actually had a new dreaming tree, if you will, planted right here, and they have a marker for it. But basically it's talking about the grandson of Walt helped plant this tree, but they brought in soil from Magic Kingdom and water from the rivers of America to mix in with the soil here when they planted the tree. So it's got a little piece of Disney in the tree roots on this one. So hopefully it will be around for many generations to be inspired by and grow very large like its predecessor. Because that was an old tree. The original Dreaming Tree was a very old tree. This is Main Street, USA in Marceline, Missouri. This is what Walt wanted his Main Street of Disneyland and afterwards all the other Disney parks were based on. The way he remembered Main Street when he was a kid here in Marceline. They also, he told his animators to recreate it for Lady and the Tramp. It's the little town from Lady and the Tramp. It's based off of Marceline. There's just a lot of references, a lot of nostalgia and Americana that he had built up from his memories here, his childhood memories here. But all the little shops and, you know, the way main streets used to look is how they wanted Marceline's or Main Street USA to look. But that's how Marceline's, and like many other Midwestern and Southern towns, used to look the same way around the turn of the 20th century. Also, there's a couple of nods. One of them for Main Street, well, Lady and the Tramp already mentioned, but the other one is in downtown Disney in Anaheim, right outside the Disney parks. There is a confectionery shop called Marceline's Confectionary, and that's based off of a confection shop that was here when he was a kid. It wasn't called that, but the one in downtown Disney that still sells fudge and all the delicious treats from Disneyland is still there today. And it's called Marceline's Confectionary because of this, his hometown. Like many main streets in America today, most commerce has gone to the outskirts and the suburbs as people, you know, move out of city centers. So main streets don't have the polish that they used to, the way that Walt remembered them. But this one's still got the bones of what it used to look like many of these towns do, and it's still pretty cool to walk down its sidewalks. So behind me is the Santa Fe Railroad. There's actually a train going on it right now. This was a very popular spot back in the turn of the 20th century, but this is also how Walt got here to Marceline. His father and his older brothers went down to Marceline earlier, so he rode the train down with his little sister Ruth and his mother, and they got off here at the train station right here in Marceline on the Santa Fe Railroad. And this park that I'm standing in was donated by the Santa Fe Railroad to the city, because this was one of their main stops back then. And they called it the E.P. Ripley Park. And this was a park that anytime they went to town, Ruth and Walt would play in. And he had very fond memories of this park. And in fact, he named the first locomotive at Disneyland, for the little railroad at Disneyland, he named the E.P. Ripley because of this park, because of the fond memories he had playing here. And it still exists today. Probably changed a little over time, but then again, maybe not. Still has an old gazebo, and they even have a caboose, Santa Fe Railroad caboose, and a locomotive called the Disneyland RR Railroad, Disneyland Railroad, Santa Fe, another tie-in to Disneyland, which is pretty awesome. We got a little pond over there. Here comes another train on the Santa Fe. Trains here still go through constantly, still a hubbub of activity, train activity. But yeah, that's a locomotive on the old Santa Fe and Disneyland Railroad. goes the engines. Well, they were the Midway engines, apparently. I love trains. I don't know why. Maybe we're trained to love them from birth. I have no idea, but they are pretty awesome. So the Uptown Theater right behind me is important to Disney history because back in 1956, Roy and Walt premiered their movie, The Great Locomotive Chase here. They actually came to Marceline and they had the theater open for 24 hours so that everyone could come in and see it for free. But they premiered that here in 1956. And then in 1998, the Walt Disney Company came back and premiered The Spirit of Mickey here. Basically a history of Mickey Mouse, and they premiered that at this theater as well. So they've had two Disney premieres, official Disney premieres at this theater. Very tiny theater here in Marceline, but they have plaques commemorating both, and obviously they still have the marquee, the Spirit of Mickey marquee right there, and it's pretty neat. Another cool tie-in to Disneyland. So here in the box office, obviously we have the Goofy plushie who's manning the fort. But at the theater on Main Street, USA in Disneyland, there is a mannequin named Tilly. She has a name tag on. She sits in this very same box office equivalent there on Disneyland's Main Street, USA. But if you look closely at her name tag, not only does it say Tilly, but right underneath it says where she's from, and it says Marceline, Missouri. Above the theater, you can stay in this Airbnb, which is what goes right up there. And they've got it decorated accordingly, all very Disneyed up. But it's in the apartments right above the theater, which is pretty neat. So behind me is Walt Disney Elementary School. And it's not just a name they threw on it. They actually dedicated this school, and Walt came here for the dedication. He had the Imagineers design the playground, which is long gone now, but that must have been really cool. But what's great about inside here is the walls are covered in Disney artwork painted by Disney animator Bob Moore. They're one of a kind. They're throughout the entire school. Most of them are still hanging in there right now, which is pretty neat to be able to be in a uniquely Disney place. Also, he donated the flagpole, which is right above me, and right here is a plate. So this was used in the 1960 Olympic Games because Walt Disney was the chairman of pageantry, which I can't think of a better job title for Walt Disney, but the chairman of pageantry. But once they used it for here and they were dedicating the school, he had it, he donated it here. And so it even says Walt Disney right on it with the Olympic plate, which is pretty neat. When he donated the flagpole, he donated 2 flags. One was a Cinderella themed flag, and the other one was a flag that he opened Disneyland with. It's a flag, an orange flag with Mickey's head on it, and it flew over Disneyland, and they still have a version of it today. He donated that here. It's now in the museum right downtown here, the Walt Disney Boyhood Museum, and they sell them here, which I believe, as far as I know, is the only place in the Disney Kingdom that you can buy that flag. I was wondering if you guys had anything that had the Disney stamp on it that you can get postmarked.
Well, we can postmark anything, just postcard or anything.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But do you have any kind of a Disney stamp at all, or is it just the postmark? I'll still do a postcard or a card.
Just like a regular.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be great.
Still give you something.
Absolutely. Awesome. So that's stamp day. So this stamp, that's Roy Disney with some students and some other folks. But the stamp that was issued here back in 1968 was completely sold out, obviously. I don't know what it's worth today, but you can still get pretty much anything postmarked from Marceline, Missouri, right on the postmark. Now, they don't have any Disney stamps available, but you can still do the postmark on, you know, a letter or whatever. You could probably do like a Disney envelope and bring in your own, and they would postmark it for you, which would be a cool collectible too. But it's pretty cool. So the postmark actually says where the dream began, and of course it has the Mickey and Walt silhouette holding hands, and it's actually called the Walt Disney Post Office, which is pretty neat. So I wanted to make a quick stop by the Hotel Marceline, obviously right behind me. Very nice place to stay. Lots of themed rooms. Everything's decorated Disney, of course. But there's a tie-in with Disneyland that I wanted to look at. So if you go down Main Street USA at Disneyland and you turn about midway through, you're gonna see Center Street, and you would turn right and go down to the lockers. Right by the lockers at the end of that little alley / street is the Hotel Marceline. So it was another nod, obviously, to Walt's hometown. He made the Hotel Marceline there. Now, when Walt was here, the hotel that was downtown here in Marceline in the early 1900s was not called the Hotel Marceline. So that came later. And then whenever it was at Disneyland, whoever was buying this hotel probably thought it was a good name too. So they went ahead and did the tie-in, and the tie-in is now complete. So you can stay in a Disney themed room here at the Hotel Marceline and then go see the facade of the Hotel Marceline at Disneyland on Main Street USA. It's pretty cool. What a cruel lie. So, I have just found out that, because I'm here on a Monday, I am here the one day a week that the Walt Disney Boyhood Museum is closed. They left the open flag out though, just to taunt me. It's a stone cold bummer, bro. I was really looking forward to going through this museum. They have his childhood desk from the school and some of their different family associated things that have been donated by the Disney family. Yeah, that's a bummer. I was really, really hoping to get to see that museum. Okay, well, if you're planning a trip to Marceline, then just know that, yeah, Monday's not a good day. Not a good day at all. Yeah, might want to avoid those days. One thing I can definitely tell you was that the museum is in what is the old train station. This was the Marceline train station that Walt, his sister, and mother would have arrived to Marceline on in 1905, 1906. They would have gotten off right here, right off the tracks, and yeah, put their luggage maybe on one of these carts, jumped up on one of those wagons, and gone off to the farm. So yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool museum. Well, I have definitely enjoyed my visit to Marceline very much. I definitely recommend it. If you're a Disney fan, it's definitely a must-see. It's got a lot of little points that you can really see the beginnings of things, the way Walt saw them when he was a kid, which I think is really neat. I really do. So I'm definitely looking forward to coming back, visiting the museum again. And I hope you guys enjoyed my visit to Marceline as much as I did. And we'll see you on down the road. Bye now.